Hi, welcome back to Tynwald's YouTube channel. This is a follow-up video on the last video that we made on how to start your business. For those of you who have not watched the previous video, I encourage you to go back and watch that video first before this one. Otherwise, for some of you who don't really mind, you can carry on. In the last video, we went over two main aspects of business, which are operations and the statutory environment. This video is going to focus on the operations aspect of business. In our operations process, we're going to start with inputs. So inputs are the implements that we bring in to the business in order to produce the goods and services that we're going to be producing. I know that sounds very simplified and straightforward, and it actually is that way. In a business that is producing product, these will be raw materials that you're going to process, or in the services industry, that might be data or information that you are going to process to produce your output. The next phase, naturally, is the processing phase. So processing is where we're taking the inputs that we got in the first phase of gathering inputs, and we're processing that to create our output. The processing phase is a lot more complex than the other two phases, and this is where most of the problems arise, because remembering that we need to focus on our goal, and as we mentioned in the last video, our goal is to make money. But during the processing phase, this can get a little muddled up in the detail, and a lot of people lose track there. We're going to discuss the processing phase a little bit more in detail after I summarize the rest of the diagram that we have on the screen for you. The next phase, which is the final phase of the production process, is output. So this is where we've taken our goods through processing, and we now have the output, which are the final goods or services that we're going to present to our customer. Presenting the goods to our customer means the last aspect of our business process. Remember, we're done with our production process now. Now it's just the last end of the business process, which is sales. So sales is us taking the goods or services that we've produced and selling them to make money. So that's how we get to our goal. But obviously, between our production process and our sales, we need to have marketing so that people are aware of the stuff that we've made and they can buy it. So now in the processing phase, we're going to discuss some of the factors that can deter you from getting to your goal and things that you need to do in order to make sure that you stay on track. So we're going to discuss how you can optimize the processing aspect of your business so that you can best meet your goal. The importance of having a goal is that it can make operations a lot less complicated. So let's go straight into processing. Now, the first important aspect of processing that is going to impact on our goal of making money is efficiency. If we are inefficient, that means we're not going to make as much as we can from the business process that we're doing. So in looking at our efficiencies, one of the important factors to be aware of is that in any given process, whether you're producing a product or it's a service, you're going to have constraints or bottlenecks. These are things where you have a limited amount of the resource in order to produce your output. So in certain businesses, this can be time. If it's in the service industry, for example, let's say you are doing video editing or graphics design, your staff only have so much time to edit the content that they're working on, and so that is going to be a constraint. If you're manufacturing things, this can be the machined hours that you can have per day. You only have so many hours in a day, and the machine can only produce as many goods as it can within that time. When we're looking at constraints, we can use principles from theories of constraints to make sure that we're making the most of our limited resources. So a good way to think about this is these are your bottlenecks, and your bottlenecks are like the weakest link in a chain. So you have the entire process working through from input, going through processing to output. And it's almost like you can think of it as a chain, and it has these different links, right? So in order for you to make the most of the entire chain, you can't just elevate certain links in the chain. You have to optimize the entire chain to work best for the weakest link that you have in the chain. So that weakest link you can think of as your bottleneck or your main constraint. So the first step then is that you have to identify your constraint And then once you have identified your constraint, figure out what is causing it to be a constraint and how it is impacting your entire process from start to finish. Once you have done this, then you need to work on optimizing your constraints so that you make the most of it. That way, you know that it's helping the entire system to progress forward. The main issue that people normally face when they're dealing with optimizing their constraints and generally dealing with the entire business processes, they start to look at the different aspects separately. And in that way, they can achieve efficiencies in an aspect of the production process, but that efficiency does not actually help the entire process. An example of this can be, let's say you need 50 kilograms of sand to manufacture the optimum number of bricks on a brick manufacturing plant, but you decide, you know what, the machine needs to work all the time because it has limited number of hours that it can be productive for in a day. So we're going to get 100 kgs of sand instead of 50 kgs. What's going to happen there is you're going to get more sand than you need, and you might have to get additional storage space for that sand. And by getting additional storage space, you need to pay for more space to store that, which increases your operational costs or production costs. The moment you increase your production costs, you're now working against your goal, because remember we said our goal is to make more money. So what you might rather do is figure out the optimum amount of sand that you need in order to keep the machine operational, but without creating an additional expense because you are buying too much of an input, for example. So once you have done that, then you need to just make sure that you continue to assess especially the limited resources, because it's a process of continuous improvement. It's not something that you just do once off and then you say, great, our system is perfect and it never has to be improved again. It's like with your computer's operating software, you're constantly getting updates because there are always things that you can improve in any system so that you can be more productive, save time, and be more efficient. So when you've made the most of your constraint, that means your business is getting closer to its goal. And productivity can be defined as any process or any activity that you're doing within your business in order to get closer to your goal. And inefficiency or lack of productivity is the opposite of that. So anything that takes you further from your goal. So like in the example that I've just given, if you increase operational costs without necessarily increasing your sales, then you are getting further from your goal than you should be. So you're not being productive. This entire process that we've spoken about of the production process, remembering that it is your input to processing, and then out of processing, you get output. And then once we've got those, then we sell those and we use our marketing department to get our product known to the public. So this whole process to go from input to the money that we get is called throughput. So throughput is the rate at which the entire system generates money through sales. So it's very, very important to know that the production process is separate from the sales process, that those two work hand in hand to produce throughput. And the more throughput you have, the more that your business is going to make money. And you can measure that through various means. You can measure that using net profit. You can measure it using return on investment. But just remember that increasing one aspect of your production process, if it doesn't lead to additional throughput, is not actually helping your system. So make sure that your throughput is always constantly increasing and your business is on the right path and you can meet your goals. See you on the next video where we're going to discuss the statutory aspect of business. Cheers.